To support Jack's dream of becoming an artist, I worked various jobs and ended up in a car accident, losing my sight. He took care of me for 3 years but complained behind my back. I've taken care of a blind woman for 3 years. Isn't that enough to repay my debt? Now I just feel disgusted when I see her. I'm the most renowned artist in the world. Do I really have to spend my life with a blind woman? I wish I had never met her. He regretted it long ago. I said quietly. System, I regret it. Can I get back my talent, my eyes? A mechanical voice replied. Current points are insufficient to activate the time-space channel. Please accumulate Jack's resentment value. Once the value reaches 100, the exchange can be completed. Current resentment value, 30. Chapter 1. At the entrance of the art exhibition, I held the documents Jack had forgotten at home, ready to hand them to him. Based on my vague memory, I clutched my cane tightly and found the entrance he mentioned. Jack, you forgot your documents. I brought them for you. When one loses their sight, the sense of hearing becomes particularly acute. Just like now, I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Even though I wore sunglasses, it was obvious to anyone that I was blind. I overheard some women whispering. Is that Mrs. Johnson? How could such an outstanding artist marry a blind woman? How does she still dare to go out like this? Isn't she afraid of embarrassing him? I stood there calmly until I heard Jack's familiar voice. Didn't I tell you to go out less? Why are you suddenly here? With that, he pulled me to a corner, away from the prying eyes. I tilted my head and raised the documents in my hand. I just brought you the documents you forgot, but it seems you're not too happy to see me. Jack paused, his voice softening quickly. Why would you think that? I was just worried you'd get into trouble on the way. Is that so? I looked at him with a faint smile. Then, can I sit in on your class for a while? You know, I used to paint too. I had never made such a request before. To be precise, since the accident, I had never appeared in public with Jack. He married me but kept me isolated. My eyes couldn't see light, and gradually, my life couldn't either. Jack quickly refused. Don't be silly. You can't see, and you won't understand. I'll call a car to take you home. As he spoke, I heard someone urging him. Mr. Johnson, it's time for class. It was a girl's voice, bright and youthful. Jack responded quickly and said to me, You should go home on your own. Don't cause me any trouble. He walked away briskly. Even from a distance, I could hear his conversation with the girl. Mr. Johnson, is that your wife? Jack didn't answer, and I couldn't see his expression. The girl continued. She's blind and looks so ordinary. Why did you marry someone like her? This time, I heard Jack's response. His voice was indulgent, with a hint of helplessness. Let's go to class. Don't talk about irrelevant things. As their footsteps faded, I stood there silently. 3 years ago, Jack was an unknown artist. To support his dream, I worked 3 jobs and ended up in an accident, losing my sight. He felt deeply guilty back then. When I came out of the emergency room, he proposed to me in front of everyone, promising to take care of me for the rest of my life. After I lost my sight, Jack's career flourished. He became one of the most promising young artists and a lecturer at a prestigious local university. But he gradually changed. He stopped letting me go out, always saying it was for my safety. At first, I believed him, until his birthday when I overheard his conversation with his friends. I've taken care of a blind woman for 3 years. Isn't that enough to repay my debt? I feel disgusted every time I see her without sunglasses. I'm the most talented artist. Everyone is mesmerized by my paintings. Do I really have to spend my life with a blind woman? I wish I had never met her. So, he regretted marrying me long ago. I said quietly. System, I regret it. Can I get my eyes back? The mechanical voice in my mind replied. Current points are insufficient to activate the time-space channel. Please accumulate Jack's resentment value. Once the value reaches 100, you can get back what is yours. Current resentment value, 30. Fortunately, there is still time. I still have a chance. Chapter 2. I groped my way into the exhibition. Someone deliberately tripped me, making me fall heavily to the ground. It was the same girl's voice, arrogant as ever. Mrs. Johnson, if you're so inconvenient, why don't you just stay at home? This is not a place for a blind person. Can't you let the teacher have some peace of mind? I replied. Before the accident, I often accompanied your teacher to art exhibitions. She laughed sharply, her voice becoming piercing. That was then, not now. Can you even see these paintings? Now you're just a useless burden, creating trouble for others. Look at how everyone is staring at you. Oh, I forgot, you're blind, you can't see anything. She kicked away my cane. Look at you. Without your cane, are you still human? Don't you think you're a burden? How long will you keep dragging others down? At that moment, I clearly heard Jack's light chuckle not far away. I raised my head and looked in his direction. Darling, are you just going to watch your student insult me like this? Jack cleared his throat. What did Emily say wrong? Enough, stop embarrassing yourself and go home. I struggled to get up from the ground. Go home? Why should I go home? Is there a rule that I can't enter this exhibition? He suppressed his anger. I'm telling you again, go home. I turned to the crowd. This is your teacher, a man who doesn't even respect his own wife. Is he fit to be a teacher? Jack completely lost his temper. He grabbed my wrist and dragged me to the center of the crowd, ripping off my sunglasses. My hollow eye sockets were exposed for all to see. If you want to make a scene, I'll give you one. Instantly, I heard gasps all around me. I was terrified, frantically hitting him. Since losing my sight, I had never taken off my sunglasses in public. I had never stepped out of this shadow. Seeing my fear, he finally let go of my hand. You want everyone to see you like this? I'll satisfy you. I crawled on the ground, searching for my sunglasses, begging him to help me. Jack ignored me, continuing to berate me. Do you know how unappealing you look right now? I told you to leave, but you insisted on making things difficult for both of us. You're ruining my reputation. Do you know you look like a ghost? Do you know I have nightmares every time I see your eyes at night? When will you let me go? I retorted. Why didn't you say this when I saved you? Why didn't you say this when you married me? You've been pretending for so long, and now that you're successful, you start despising me? Hearing this, Jack suddenly went mad. Just as I was about to find the sunglasses, he stomped on them, shattering them into pieces. Yes, you supported my art, and that's why you ended up in an accident. But how long do I have to repay you? You've morally blackmailed me for so many years. Did I beg you to save me? Haven't I repaid my debt? Do you know how much I resent that you saved me? Jack screamed as if he had been the one suffering all these years. I leaned on my cane, the system's voice echoing in my mind. Congratulations, host. Resentment value increased to 50. Chapter 3. With my goal achieved, I didn't want to stay in this revolting place any longer. I used my cane to make my way out step by step. Jack saw me leaving and laughed. Without my help calling a car, can you get home? Don't wander around and get hit by a car. A blind person like you should stay in the gutter. Why come out and annoy people? Emily walked over to Jack, sounding as if she hooked her arm around his. Mr. Johnson is the most outstanding artist. His masterpiece Daisy is a classic. He will attend all sorts of high-profile events. He needs an elegant companion. How can a gutter rat like you be worthy of him? If you have any sense, get lost. But I caught the key words in her speech. His masterpiece Daisy? No wonder he never talked to me about his paintings. It turns out he stole my work. Jack and I grew up in the orphanage. We both loved painting, but his talent was slightly inferior to mine. To protect his pride, I often hid my paintings. Daisy was one of them, but I never thought it would become his masterpiece. But now, I'm just a blind woman. No one would believe me. Jack's voice became tense. Stop it. If you don't leave, I'll call security and you won't like it. I gave him a cold smile. No need to kick me out. I'll leave on my own. I walked out expressionlessly, leaving behind Emily's sweet voice. Mr. Johnson, don't worry about that annoying blind woman. Let's start the class. That night, Jack didn't come home. The next morning, I made breakfast and took a cab to Jack's office. The lively office fell silent the moment they saw me standing at the door. It seemed everyone had heard about the incident at the exhibition. I pretended nothing had happened and handed Jack the breakfast with a smile. You didn't come home last night, so I made you breakfast. It's your favorite from the orphanage. Try it. A teacher nearby murmured. Mr. Johnson grew up in an orphanage? I thought he said his parents were abroad. Yeah, and the girl doesn't seem to be lying. How could Mr. Johnson make up his own background? I laughed heartily. He doesn't have any parents. I found him at the orphanage gate. He was like a stray dog back then, wearing rags. Jack shouted. Anna, shut up. I pretended to be scared, looking extremely aggrieved. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up your sad past. Try the breakfast I made. Remember when you were so hungry at the orphanage that you stole the chubby kid's breakfast and got beaten up? I saved you and got this scar on my forehead. Before I finished, Jack grabbed the lunchbox and smashed it to the ground. Enough! Why do you keep bringing this up? Get out! Get out! A female teacher couldn't stand it anymore and tried to mediate. Mr. Johnson, why are you so angry? Your wife brought you breakfast out of kindness. How can you treat her like this? Jack seemed to lose it. She's here to make me miserable on purpose. She's a pest, a leech. Why didn't that car accident take her and spare me? His emotions were intense, and a crowd gathered at the door. No one expected the usually gentle and polite Mr. Johnson to reveal such a hideous side. Jack roared. Don't listen to this liar. She's trying to ruin me. But no one believed him. After all, why would a blind wife who kindly brought her husband breakfast want to harm him? Listening to the murmurs outside, I knew my goal was achieved. Sure enough, the mechanical voice chimed in again. Congratulations, host. Resentment value increased to 70. Chapter 4. After returning home, Jack arrived shortly after, accompanied by a woman. My intuition told me it was Emily. Indeed, she threw her bag on the sofa next to me. Anna, what do you want? Why did you cause that scene at school? Why are you trying to ruin Mr. Johnson? I looked at him with my hollow eyes, my tone mocking. Ruin him? Which part of what I said was false? Oh, I remember. He fabricated a background of having parents abroad. Now that I've exposed him, the teachers and students must be looking at him differently. Emily was enraged, rushing over and slapping me hard. Shut up. Even if Mr. Johnson doesn't have parents, he's still a top artist abroad. Do you know how much his paintings sell for? What right do you, a blind woman, have to talk about him like that? My right cheek burned. I raised my face to look at her. So, you're willing to be the other woman? Don't you know that women like you are the real rats in the gutter, always hiding in the dark? As soon as I finished, Jack shouted in anger. Enough! How long are you going to torture me? Yes, I love Emily. She's young, beautiful, and understands me, unlike you, a blind woman. I looked in his direction. So you admit it, you had an affair with your student? His voice was eager. Yes, I admit I love her. I am hopelessly in love with her. She brings me joy, unlike you, only pain. I lowered my head, a smile tugging at my lips. Very well, you've finally admitted it. Jack didn't understand, pulling Emily out the door. Later that night, the school's administration received a video in their email. In the video, Jack admitted to having an affair with his student. Before he returned home, I had installed cameras around the house. Everything he and Emily did was recorded. The video had a significant impact. Due to the school's reputation, they acted swiftly. Jack's teaching position was suspended, pending further investigation. When Jack called me, he was hysterical. "Anna, you lunatic. What do you want? You're just a blind woman. Do you want to be tied to me forever? I feel disgusted every time I think of you. Can't you just let me go? I've taken care of you for 3 years. Isn't that enough? I wish I had been the one who went blind." I listened quietly as he ranted and raved at me over the phone. Until the mechanical voice in my mind chimed in again. "Congratulations, host. Resentment value reached 100. You can now complete the exchange and regain your eyesight." "No rush, let's finalize the divorce first." When he finally calmed down, I said quietly, "In that case, let's get a divorce." Chapter 5. The divorce process was not smooth. Jack had earned a lot through his art. When I proposed splitting the assets equally, he laughed out loud. "Are you joking? What do these assets have to do with you? I earned every penny. If you have any sense, you'd leave quietly." I was done wasting words with him and hired a divorce lawyer. The lawyer informed him that I had evidence of his affair. If it went to court, it would severely damage his public image. After weighing the pros and cons, Jack decided to split the marital assets equally. With the lawyer's help, I quickly got the divorce certificate. The moment I walked out of the civil affairs office, I let out a long sigh of relief. It was finally over. Emily came to pick up Jack. "Congratulations, Mr. Johnson. You've finally gotten rid of that blind woman. Now we can get married openly." Getting married on the same day as the divorce? These young people really know how to play. Half an hour later, they emerged, and I was still waiting for a cab outside. Emily deliberately raised her voice. "Can a blind woman hail a cab? Don't stand by the road and get hit." I pretended not to hear, too tired to engage with such people. She continued. "By the way, darling, Mr. Smith from Jinyan Group invited you to speak at his new product launch. He's always supported your exhibitions. Make sure you're not late and upset him. Let's hurry." After they left, I took a cab home. Jack had left me this apartment, perhaps because anything related to me disgusted him. On TV, Jack was giving a speech at the product launch. A mischievous thought crossed my mind. Why not switch back now? Didn't he always say he wished he had gone blind instead? Let's make that wish come true. "System, help me get my eyesight back." "Yes, host." 3, 2, 1. Exchange complete. I was a bit nervous as I slowly opened my eyes. Everything around me gradually became clear. Finally, my eyesight was back. Suddenly, my eyes fixed on the wedding photo hanging on the living room wall. It wasn't me in the photo, but Jack and Emily. A year ago, Jack suddenly suggested we take wedding photos, saying it was to fulfill my sense of ceremony. When the photos arrived, I was so happy I had them hung in the most prominent place in the living room. But I never realized that the photo I cherished was actually a picture of him and another woman. Jack had been playing me for a fool. Just then, the TV erupted with gasps. Jack had suddenly collapsed. The host tried to maintain composure. "Mr. Johnson must be tired from his recent work. Please rest well after today's event." At first, Jack thought he was just exhausted. But when he waved his hand in front of his eyes, rubbed them repeatedly, he realized something was wrong. He was blind. The last image on TV was a crowd frantically lifting Jack into an ambulance. Chapter 6. After regaining my sight, I found Jack's works online. Not only Daisy, but most of his notable works were originally mine. He thrived on my blood and sweat, using me as a stepping stone to success. Once he achieved fame, he found my contribution too burdensome. Such a person is nothing but a scoundrel. I compiled all the evidence and sketches of my original works and posted them online, revealing Jack's theft. The revelation caused an uproar. People couldn't believe their idolized genius was a thief. But the facts and evidence were undeniable. Someone also exposed Jack's affair with Emily. Public outrage intensified. He was not only a thief but also morally bankrupt. The school acted swiftly, firing Jack and disavowing knowledge of his misconduct. His supporting galleries withdrew his works, threatening legal action. Soon, the once celebrated artist became a pariah. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number. The caller identified herself as a nurse from the Central Hospital. Jack had been demanding to see me. I realized I had blocked his number since regaining my sight. I have nothing to do with him anymore. Let his wife take care of him. The nurse sighed. His wife disappeared after his accident. We couldn't reach her. The patient is very agitated and insists on seeing you. His condition is serious, sudden blindness has left him emotionally unstable. If this continues, his eyes may never recover. I thought for a moment and replied. Let him stay blind. It's what he deserves. The nurse, puzzled, heard only the click of me hanging up the phone. After resting at home for a while, I decided to travel and make up for the lost time. I immersed myself in the beautiful landscapes, and my heart opened up. For 3 years, I had wasted my energy on unworthy people and things. From now on, I wanted to live for myself. After half a month of travel, I returned home to find a man standing at my door. As I approached and saw who it was, I realized it was Jack. Chapter 7. In just over half a month, he had lost a lot of weight. His face was covered with stubble, his clothes were shabby, and his knees were dirty, indicating he had endured many hardships. He turned his ears toward me, his voice filled with uncertainty. Anna, is that you? I sighed and walked up to him. How did you know I would be back today? He gave a bitter smile and shook his head. I didn't. I've been waiting here all this time. I heard your eyes have recovered. Congratulations. Ignoring him, I unlocked the door and entered. He awkwardly followed me inside, leaning on his cane. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the sofa. Do you remember when you suggested we take wedding photos? After regaining my sight, I realized that the photo I cherished was actually of you and Emily. You must have laughed at me thinking I was just a blind fool. Jack shook his head repeatedly. No, let me explain. Emily insisted on that cruel prank. I cut him off. So you agreed and went along with it. Jack, you're truly heartless, playing me for 2 years. He suddenly lunged forward and grabbed my hand. Anna, I deeply regret it. Emily turned out to be a terrible person. After the accident, she disappeared and even forced me to file for divorce. I lost my job. You're all I have left. I know I shouldn't have stolen your paintings, but I just wanted to improve our lives. I wanted to earn money to cure your blindness. I was momentarily blinded by greed and ambition. I realize my mistakes now. Please give me another chance to make it up to you. He even shed a few crocodile tears. Disgusted, I shook off his hand. My voice turned icy. Did you steal my paintings to improve our lives or to satisfy your own vanity? When I first lost my sight, I begged you to take me to a doctor, but you always said you were too busy or that money was tight. How many times did you actually take me to the hospital? Now you're just making excuses. And didn't you always say you wished you were the one who went blind? Well, now your wish has come true. Why are you regretting it now? He pleaded desperately. I never realized how painful it would be to lose my sight. I can't see anything, my world is dark. I can't even go to the bathroom without help. I trust no one. You're all I have left. Yes, losing vision is indeed excruciating. When I first lost my sight, Jack was always busy with work and socializing. He often came home drunk. Feeling sorry for him, I would fumble my way to the kitchen to make him some hangover soup. I can't remember how many times I burned myself with boiling water or cut myself on broken glass. But I persevered. Eventually, I became completely self-sufficient and could even cook his favorite dishes. But what did it matter? I was still a blind woman who couldn't help his career, only dragging him down. Jack found it unbearable now, but I had repeatedly climbed out of despair. I coldly replied, "But my life no longer includes you." He looked up at me in shock. "What do you mean? Do you have someone else?" I looked at him with disdain. "Is romance the only thing in your life? Aren't there other important things?" Chapter 8. During my travels, I met a mentor. He loved the sketches I drew and offered to find me a professional teacher. With my talent, he believed I could become a rising star. After some thought, I agreed. Before, my dream was for Jack to be happy. But I never asked myself what I wanted. Now I knew. Just then, Mark arrived. Seeing Jack and me in a tense standoff, he understood quickly. "Anna, I managed to schedule a class with that industry master. We should get going." I gathered my things, ready to leave. Jack grabbed me. "Are you refusing to forgive me because of him?" "Anna, I've apologized. I've been punished for stealing your work. What more do you want?" I lost my patience. "Jack, are you delusional? Who I'm with is none of your business. You deserved your punishment. Why should I forgive you?" Ignoring him, I left with Mark. On the way, Mark tried to console me. "Some things are in the past. Life goes on, and you have more important things to focus on." I smiled slyly. "You're right. Right now, the most important thing is getting to our lesson." The teacher Mark introduced me to was indeed an industry master. He quickly identified my weaknesses. With his guidance, my skills improved rapidly. The teacher was thrilled, saying I had a natural talent and took me on as his last student. After 6 months of training, the teacher organized an exhibition under his name, showcasing mostly my work. With him and Mark backing me, the exhibition became an instant hit. People were amazed by the talent of such a young artist. I modestly said, "It's all thanks to my teacher." The teacher would laugh heartily. "It's because my student has a natural gift. Otherwise, she wouldn't have progressed so quickly." After my exhibition gained fame, fans discovered that I was the original creator of Jack's famous Daisy. I became a symbol of resilience, someone who overcame her past and found new life. A week after the exhibition opened, I had a special visitor, Jack. Chapter 9. In the months since I last saw him, Jack had cleaned up a bit. He seemed more self-sufficient. He used his cane to feel his way around my paintings. "Anna, you've made it. You're now the hottest young artist." Mark, fearing trouble, wanted the security to remove him, but I stopped them. Jack paused and continued. 3 years ago, you should have been successful, but I held you back. I realized your talent first, but I was afraid. From the orphanage, you were always better than me, always protecting me. My pride couldn't accept being inferior. So I desperately wanted to prove myself. When you had the accident, I felt relieved for a moment. I knew you couldn't surpass me anymore. Later, I stole your work and succeeded, but I knew it was stolen success. Every time I saw you, I was reminded of my shameful actions. I couldn't face you, so I avoided you." Tears streamed down his face from under his sunglasses. At this moment, I believed his sincerity, but sincerity is fleeting and unreliable. He bowed deeply. "Anna, I'm truly sorry." Before I could react, he left, leaning on his cane. I might have imagined it, but his back seemed straighter. I watched him leave, lost in thought until Mark called my name several times. He spoke with a hint of jealousy. "Jack looks quite pitiful." I rolled my eyes. "If you pity him so much, why don't you comfort him?" He grinned. "I was just worried you might feel sorry for him." I shook my head. "If he's pitiful, it's because he deserves it. My success is because I earned it." Mark looked at me with undeniable admiration. Just as he was about to speak, I interrupted him. There are so many people here today. Let's get back to work. I turned away, pretending not to see the disappointment in his eyes. Some things I understood, but I still didn't know how to handle them. Since that day, Mark became my full-time driver and caretaker. He took care of me when I had stomach issues, cooked meals, and drove me to work. One day, I asked curiously, "Don't you have a job? How are you always free?" He looked at me earnestly. "You forgot you're my golden goose? As long as I take good care of you, I can make all the money I need." It was only recently that I learned Mark's family was in the cultural and creative industry and didn't lack money. I was their prized asset, earning substantial income. Because of his artistic background, he quickly recognized my talent and found top-notch teachers to guide me. On my birthday, I returned home to find the house empty, with no sign of Mark or any prepared meal. Worried something had happened to him, I was about to call when the lights suddenly went out. Before I could react, Mark appeared from the balcony, holding a cake. He walked steadily towards me, every step firm and determined. "Anna, happy birthday." In the candlelight, his already handsome features looked even more striking, making my heart skip a beat. He held the cake up to me. "Don't just stand there. Make a wish." I nodded, clasping my hands together. "May we always have each other.